So last month I decided to buy a lot of movies and DVDs, so I spent a lot of time watching movies last month. That's why I'm making this video into two parts. If y'all are interested in seeing where I watch these movies, go read that in the description down below. I really like how 500 Days of Summer describes itself as not being a love story, but it being a story about love. I'm a big fan of romantic movies, but there are just a lot of them out there that are just so cheesy and just not well written. And 500 Days of Summer is definitely aware of those flaws and even kind of makes fun of them in a few of the scenes. My favorite part of the film was in that scene where you got to see Tom's expectations versus his reality. Many movie lovers have created must-watch movie lists. And one movie that you will basically find on all of those lists is Alien by Ridley Scott. It came out in 1979, so around the time of Star Wars, the original Star Wars, and still to this day, Alien counts as one of the best science fiction movies ever. What makes this movie so special is the way it blends the two genres of horror and science fiction. You rarely get to see the two combined on screen, and yeah, it was just a really intense experience. You had this alien on board and you didn't get to see it that often. This alien is probably like the coolest looking creature out there. I would agree that The Tree of Life is probably one of the most beautiful films ever, at least visually. There are all these scenes in there of nature and of our world and the entire galaxy and existence. And yeah, that's really the main reason to watch this movie, is just seeing how beautiful it is, how beautiful these colors are in the film. There is a story throughout the film. It's about this family in Texas, but it's really those just... this movie actually did leave me speechless at the end. So it's hard to describe it. It's hard to say what it's about. I'm a big fan of the American director Jim Jarmusch because his movies are, at least the ones that I've seen, are quite original, and most importantly, the dialogue is always great and just funny and something fresh. Yeah. So I decided to watch Coffee and Cigarettes. Now, as I started the movie, I realized that it's actually a compilation of about 10 or so short films that Jim Jarmusch created. What they all have in common is that it's usually 2 or 3 people sitting down together, drinking coffee and smoking cigarettes. And yeah, just the dialogues in each short film is very different. Some are strangers, other are old friends, and just different conflicts and themes they talk about. And yeah, I just thought it was really cool to watch that, and it actually kind of inspired me to start writing again. And yeah, I really hope that one day I get to create something as fun and just cool as these short films. Another very intense movie I watched last month is Prisoners by Denis Villeneuve. A kidnapping takes place of 2 daughters, and one of the fathers is really willing to do anything to find them. And ever since the movie first started, you got this uneasy feeling that something bad is going to happen. And it's just very intense. Like, the excitement during the film always builds up. It gets more intense. It gets more brutal. And yeah, the movie really sucks you in, and you're there feeling the same emotions as the characters on the screen. All I can say is just go watch this movie, really. If you're okay with seeing some brutal scenes in the film, go watch this movie. It's such a masterpiece, really. The French movie Last Year at Marienbad is a really rule-breaking movie. It came out sometime during the 60s, and what makes it so rule-breaking is its story outline, in that it doesn't really have a chronological order. I'm usually not a big fan of animal movies because, again, just a lot of them are written really cheesy and yeah. But The Art of Racing in the Rain I thought was actually really good, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. This movie had a lot of really emotional scenes. Some were quite happy and others were very, very sad. But yeah, that made you really care for the family and the dog. And yeah, I think this movie did really show that dogs are a man's best friend. Alright, alright, alright. I finally got around to watching Dazed and Confused by Richard Linklater, and it's the first movie that Matthew McConaughey played in. This movie was made during the 90s, but it takes place in the 70s. And it's not like most high school films. In most high school films, there's always a lot of drama, always the popular kids in school have something going on, or there's a tragic car crash. You know what I mean. But this movie was more realistic in that students, whenever they're not in school, they just basically get together in a car, crank up the music, and just drive around and hang out together. And that's basically all this movie is. Because there's not like a big plot in there and you just see these different teenagers hanging out, it's very important to have great dialogue. And yeah, this movie just has so many quotable lines in there. One of the new DVDs that I ordered was The Talented Mr. Ripley. It plays in beautiful Italy, but it's actually a thriller. So it doesn't start off immediately as a thriller, but once some things happen in the film, yeah, it turns into a thriller, and it reminded me a lot of Catch Me If You Can, because it had to do with identity theft, and yeah, I know, I really enjoyed it and thought it was quite entertaining. Out of those 10 films, I recommend to watch the two very suspenseful movies. The first one would be Alien by Ridley Scott. Yeah, as mentioned before, it's just still one of the best science fiction movies ever, and it was just so intense and suspenseful. And yeah, I really regret that I haven't seen this movie sooner. The other movie that was really testing my nerves and I highly recommend watching is Prisoners. Yeah, I just caught myself during some of the scenes just like clenching my fist while watching it, because it just all got so intense and you were so involved in the movie. And yeah, I highly, highly recommend to watch this movie. I will probably be uploading the second part to this video sometime in the next week. Until then.